What's going on, world? It's Mr. Harris again. And I'm trying to make math cool again. I think I'm pretty cool at that. Anyway, never mind. So, we're continuing to talk about logarithms. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about the rules of logarithms. Now, there are rules with logarithms just like most other math concepts. So, there's three main rules that we use. And we're going to talk about those, give an example, and I'll be out of your way. All right? So the first rule is called the product rule. Okay? We have the product rule, and product rule means multiply whenever you have the product of something. So if I have the log base A of, we're going to use a variable, x, y. Okay? So x times y. I can expand that by saying the log base A of x plus the log base A of y, okay? And we can go from the expanded version to the contracted version as well. So if I have the log base A of x plus the log base A of y, I can contract that and make it one log, okay? So for example, let's say if I have the log base 3 of 81x. I can expand this and make it the log base 3 of 81 plus the log base 3 of x. Okay? So this is the product rule. The product rule tells me if I have the log of two things that are multiplied together, then I can expand them keeping the same base and add those logs, okay? So that's the product rule. Let's go on to the next rule. And the second rule is going to be the opposite of the product is a quotient. Technically not the opposite, but the opposite of multiplication is division. So the quotient rule, okay? And the quotient rule, we're going to be talking about division, okay? So we're still going to say log base A, okay? If I have the log base A of x over y, remember these variables, please don't get too confused by variables. X can be any number, y can be any number. It can be a variable as well. Then we can take this, and if we add it with the product rule, you guessed it, we're going to subtract with the quotient rule. So I have the log base A of x minus the log base A of y, okay? So once again, I can go from the subtraction to the division as well, okay? So for example, let's say log base 7 of 343 over b, and I want to expand that. So I'll say log base 7 of 343 minus log base 7 of b. Okay? So that's the expanded version. Once again, this is the quotient rule. Okay? Now we have one more rule that we must look at with logarithms. And this rule is called, I'll tell you in just a second when I erase all this stuff. This rule is called the power rule. Okay? The power rule. No, I'm not talking about the TV show Power or superpowers or anything like that. The power rule, we're talking about exponents. So if I have the log, let's stick with base A still. And I want to say x to the b power, okay? Well, I can expand that by, I want to take this exponent to the front. So I'm just going to loop it around the front. So I have b times the log base A of x. So whenever you have an exponent here, we're going to move that exponent to the front of the logarithm, okay? And that's how you expand that. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say if I have the log base 4 of 16 to the x power. okay? Then I can expand that by taking the x to the front. So I'll say x times the log base 4 of 16. Okay, so those are your 3 main rules of working with logarithms. Remember, Young Guru's Math Tutoring. I have the solution to your math problems. Check out my YouTube channel, Young Guru's Math Tutoring. I guarantee you'll get some help.